Hello and welcome to today's lesson on fractional indices. Now, before we get started on this one, you need to have a really good understanding of what your square numbers are and what your cube numbers are, and maybe even to the power of 4 and 5, so your quartic and to the power of 5. Now, this is probably one of the hardest indices lessons, and the only reason it's hard is it because of these numbers and actually knowing what these numbers are. So the first thing you need to do is to write down what all your square numbers are, all your cube numbers are, and also some to the power of 4 and 5, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So let's write down all of our square numbers. Now do get these in your notes because it is important. You will use these a lot today. I'm going to start with 2 because 1 to the power of anything is just 1, so we're not going to deal with that one. The first thing I'm going to do is 2 squared, which we know is 2 times 2, 4. 3 squared, which is 9, couldn't think then. 4 squared, which is 16. 5 squared, which is 25. 6 squared, which is 36. 7 squared, which is 49. 8 squared, which is 64. 9 squared, which is 81. 10 squared, which is 100. 10 times 10. 9 times 9. 8 times 8. 11 squared, which is 121, and 12 squared, 12 squared, which is equal to 144. Now these are really important, okay, because you're going to need to know all of these. Now the other thing that you need to know is you also need to know the inverse of these. So what do I mean by the inverse? Well, the inverse of squaring is square root. So you're going to need to know what the square root of all of these numbers are. Now this might seem obvious at this stage, but when you get to the harder ones, you've got to know exactly what they are. So for example, you need to know what the square root of 49 is. You need to know what the square root of 100 is. You're going to need to know what the square root of 144 is. You're going to need to know all of those. So I'm going to write these ones down as well. Now you might think to me, Mr. Adams, why are you just writing down the opposite of these? But you've got to know these, so it's definitely worth having them. So the square root of 4, now take note, this is the square root of 4, so you could put a 2 there, and what this means is, what number do I times by itself twice to get 4? Well, the answer to that is 2. 2 times 2 is 4, so the square root of 4 is 2, the square root of 9 is 3, the square root of 16 is 4, so what number do I need to times by itself twice to get 16? 4 times 4 is 16. The square root of 25 is equal to 5. The square root of 36 is equal to 6. The square root of 49 is equal to 7. The square root of 64 is equal to 8. The square root of 9, would be equal to 3, but the square root of 81 is equal to 9. The square root of 100 is equal to 10. The square root of 121 is equal to 11. And the square root of 144 is equal to 12. Now make sure you have got these in your notes. This is all your squareds and then your square roots, so going backwards and forwards. So make sure you've got all of those down in your notes. Okay. Now, next up, we're going to have a look at our cubes. Okay. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky because you're going to need to know all of these off the top of your head. So let's start off with 2 cubed. What does 2 cubed mean? Well, 2 cubed, means 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, times by 2, this one is 8. Let's do 3. 3 cubed, well, 3 times 3 is 9, times by 3 is 27. 4 cubed, we're getting a little bit harder now. We only actually need to do up to 6. You don't really need to know past that. They very rarely come up. So 4 cubed, 4 times 4 is 16. Times by 4 is 64. 5 cubed, 5 times 5 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Times by 5 is 125. And I will do 6. To be honest, with this one, very rarely comes up. 6 times 6 is 36. Times by 6 is 216, I'm sure. I'm just going to check that. 6 times 6 times 6, 216. Yeah, good. So these are the ones you need to know, but the important part is you need to know backwards as well. In fact, I will put in there as well 10 cubes, because that one comes up quite a bit, which is equal to 10,000, okay? Maybe I'll put a few little dots down there so you know. So these are all of your cube numbers, but the important part, again, is knowing the inverse of these. So the inverse of cubing, you might know already, is the cube root. And this looks like a square root, but there's a little 3 inside that tick. Okay? So the cube root of 8 is equal to, so this means what number do I need to times by itself 3 times to get 8? Well, that answer is 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So the cube root of 8 is 2. The cube root of 27 is equal to 3. Again, make sure you're getting these down. The cube root of 464, is equal to 4. The cube root of 125 is equal to 5. The cube root of 216 is equal to 6. And the cube root of 1000, notice these are all cube roots, not square roots, is equal to 10. Brilliant. Okay. Now the other little ones, so again, make sure you're getting those down. You're going to need to use all of these, so make sure these are all in your notes. So you might want to write at the top, cube numbers. There you go. Cube numbers. Alright, so we've got our cube numbers. Go back and have a look at those, and if you need to pause, then pause. I'm just going to do a couple more, because these ones do come up. And it's things like 2 to the power of 4. 2 to the power of 4, we can work that out. 2 times 2 is 4, times by 2 is 8, times by 2 is 16. So the inverse of that one, instead of the 2 to the 4, it's called the 4th root. So it's the 4th root of 16, which is the opposite of that, which is equal to 2. Okay, what number do I need to times by itself 4 times to get 16? Well, the answer is 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times by 2 is 8, times by 2 is 16. This is the hard part now. Okay, you might also need to know, let's do 2 to the 5. This one comes up a bit as well. 2 to the 5 is equal to 32. So the inverse of that. Now take note, this isn't here. This 4 needs to be inside that tick. It's not like 4 root something like that. It needs to be inside that little tick there, like that. So 4th root. So 2 to the power of 5, the inverse of this is going to be the 5th root of 32, which is the opposite of that, which is equal to 2. Again, I'd probably get these down. We'll do just one more. We'll do 3 to the power of 4. I don't actually know what that is myself. Times 9 times 26. In fact, it's 81. So 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 is 81. Yeah, good. So the inverse of that, the 4th root of 81, is equal to 3. And you will need, these are the ones which are important. These are the ones that people struggle with. You will need to know all of these. So make sure they're in your notes so you know them. Okay? Brilliant. So, we haven't even started any questions yet. Okay? But all of that is really important to get us started so we understand these. As I said, this is probably the hardest part of indices, this lesson. So I want to make sure that we get off to a good start. So, now I'm going to draw a little picture here that I always draw with this, okay? And it's to help you understand what the fraction is about, okay? Now it's not just a fraction, this is a fractional indice, okay? Now, get this in your notes. You might think it's silly at the moment, but it does help. It always helps me, and it always helps everyone remember what each part means. So if I do, let's do x to the power of a over b. So x to the power of a over b. And you need to know what this a and b need to happen. And the way that I always draw it is I always draw next to it a flower like this. So draw a flower at the top, and at the bottom, what do you have underneath the flower? You have your roots. And this is just an extension of this, okay? You might think, whoa, why are you drawing a flower during maths, Mr. Adams, okay? Well, this is to help us understand what the top and bottom is. Because the top is the flour, which is the power. And the bottom, underneath this, the b, is the roots. Like your square root, your cube root, your fifth root, your fourth root. So if I've got this, the way that we write this, a to the power, sorry, my fault, x to the power of a over b is equal to, so b, the bottom of the fraction is your root, so it's your bth root of x, and the top is the flour, which is the power. So all to the power of a. And this is the important part here. The bottom of the fraction is the root, the top of the fraction is the power. If you want to write that down as well, the bottom of the fractional indice is the root, like the bth root or the third root or the square root, and the top of the fractional indice is the power. This is really important, okay? And if you know that, this becomes easy. You know this, and you know all of your squares and your roots like I've just gone through, this does become easier, okay? So, make sure you get that all in your notes. So I draw this here. Top is the power, the flour, and the bottom is the roots. So you draw this little flower. This is the important part. The bottom, the b, is the roots. The top is the power. This is not easy now, okay? But we're going to be fine. So, let's have a go now at some of these questions. And as soon as you get used to it, as soon as you see them, it will start to make sense. So here we've got example 1, first example, 12 minutes in. First example is 9 to the power of a half. Now remember, the bottom of the fraction is the root, the top of the fraction is the power. So this is equal to the square root of 9 all to the power of 1. Okay? Now, when you're doing the square root, you don't, as I said, you don't always need to put that 2 there. You could leave that, but I'm going to put it in this time. So what is the square root of 9 now? This is where you need to be flicking back through your notes. We know that the square root of 9, I'm just going to give myself a little bit more space here, actually. So, 9 to the power of a half is equal to, the bottom is the root, so the square root of 9 all to the power of 1. So you do inside the bracket first, and then we're going to do outside the bracket. So the square root of 9 is equal to, we should know that, square root of 9 is 3. It's still to the power of 1. And anything to the power of 1 is just the same. So 3 to the power of 1 is 3. So there's your first one. And this is the hard part. Converting from this fraction to this. Remember, the bottom's the power, the bottom's the root, the top's the power. And then knowing what the square root of 9 is. The square root of 9 is 3. So that was example 1. Let's have a look at example 2. I'm going to do this one anyway for you. So, 16 to the power of a half. Remember, the bottom is the root. So it's the square root of 16 all to the power of 1. Okay? What is the square root of 16? We did that in our notes before. The square root of 16 is 4 all to the power of 1, which is equal to 4 to the power of 1, which is 4. So square root of 16, then to the power of 1. We're doing them in stages like that. And it's all about knowing the squares and the roots. Brilliant. So there's your first two examples. Again, make sure they are in your notes. If you need to pause, then pause. So let's have a look now. In fact, let's just check those answers. What were they? 3 and 4? 3 and 4. Yeah, perfect. Okay, let's have a look at this next one. So, look at this now. This is the 8 to the power of it's the power of a third. So this is example 3. Now we should be starting to get this now. So 8 to the power of 1 over 3. So this is saying, remember, the bottom is the root, so it's the third root of 8 all to the power of 1. Now again, you need to look back at your notes here. What is the third root of 8? Well, the third root of 8 is 2. So this one here is 2 to the power of 1. And what is 2 to the power of 1? Well, 2 to the power of 1 is just 2. Brilliant. The answer there is 2. It's all about this. This is the first stage here. Remember, the bottom is the roots, like the flower. The bottom of the fraction is your roots, which is this root here, square root, cube root. The top is the flower, which is your power. Power 1. Okay? The top of the fraction, imagine this is your fraction line. Okay? The bottom is the roots, the top is the power. Okay? So, pause now and have a little go at that one on the right hand side. So pause now and have a little go at that one on the right. See if you understand it. Alright, let's have a go at it together. I think we should be able to get this as long as you've got your notes in front of you of all those. So this one here is example 4. And it's your 64th root, 64 to the power of 1 over 3. Now remember, bottom is the root, the top is the power. So it's the third root of 64, all to the power of 1. Now remember, you've got that list. Have a look in your list now. What is the third root of 64? Well, the third root of 64 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Times by 4 is 64. So 4 to the power of 1. So then 4 to the power of 1 is equal to 4. Brilliant. Let's check we've got those right. This one is tricky. 2 and 4, absolutely super. Brilliant. Okay, stepping up again now. Now we're combining what we did in the last lesson with what we've done in this lesson. Okay, so you notice we've got a few things here. We've got the negative and we've got the fraction. Okay, so this one here is example 5. Example 5. And it's 16 to the power of negative 1 over 2, negative half. With these questions, always deal with the negative first. Now remember from the last video, the negative means the reciprocal. So the first thing I do is I write it as the reciprocal. So the reciprocal means 1 over, so the negative means 1 over, so it's going to be 1 over 16 to the power of a half. And that's your starting point. We should be fine with that now. So then you just keep it as 1 over. Remember, the bottom of the fraction is the root, the top is the power. So this is 1 over the square root of 16 to the power of 1. Brilliant. And what is the square root of 16? The square root of 16 is 4. So this is going to be equal to, check that in your notes if you want, the square root of 16. So the square root of 16 is 1 over 4 to the 1, which is 4. So it's just 1 over 4 like that. So the square root of 16 is 4. So the power of 1 is 4. And you can't use your calculator for this. This is going to come up on a non-calculator test. So it's about knowing those squares and powers. And that's it. Okay? Negative means 1 over, and then the square root of 16, because it's the 2. Alright. So pause now and have a little go at that one on the right hand side. So pause now and have a little go at that one. Example 6, that is. Okay, let's go through it together then. So with this one, I've got 25 to the power of negative a half, or negative 1 over 2. Make sure you can see that. So I deal with the negative first. The negative from the last video, remember, means the reciprocal. So that's going to be 1 over 25 to the power of a half. Brilliant. Okay, and then we do, the bottom is the root, the top is the power. So it's still going to be 1 over, and it's going to be the square root of 25, all to the power of 1. And what is the square root of 25? Well, check your notes. Remember, we did them at the start. The square root of 25 is 5. So it's going to be 1 over 5 to the power of 1. Put that in there if you want. Which is the same as saying 1 over 5. There, like so. Okay? Square root of 25 is 5. And then to the power of 1, anything to the power of 1 is just the same, so it's going to be 1 over 5, like so. Brilliant. Hopefully you got that right. Okay, they are tricky, these. So, 1 over 4, 1 over 5, super. Right, we're stepping it up now, getting a little bit harder. So, no negatives in this one, but you'll notice now the top isn't 1 anymore, the top is a power. So with this one here, what example is this now? This is example 7. So here, 25 to the power of 3 over 2. Now this is where we've got to be really careful, okay? Because we need to make sure we know that the bottom of the fraction, the bottom of the fractional indice is the power. Say it wrong. The bottom of the fractional indice is the root, and the top is the power. So this one here, the way we'd write this, is the bottom is 2, so it's the square root of 25, and the top is the power, so I use the brackets like this, all to the power of 3. Brilliant. And then you just got to work out what each of these are. Always inside the bracket first, so I'll do it underneath. So what is the square root of 25? Square root of 25 is 5, so 5 like so, all to the power of 3. So we've done the inside, and now we just need to do 5 to the power of 3. You can look at your notes if you want, just if you're not sure on what your squares are and your cubes. So 5 to the power of 3 is going to be 5 times 5, which is 25, times by 5, which is equal to 125, like so. Brilliant. So the square root of 25 is 5, 5 to the power of 3 is that. And you've got to get from this stage, so the bottom is the root, top is the power. Okay, so pause now and have a little go at that one on the right hand side. Pause now and have a little go at that one on the right. Okay, let's have a look at this one together then. I think we should be starting to get this now and understand it, hopefully. So we've got 9 to the power of 3 over 2. Now remember, the bottom is the root, top is the power. So this is going to be the square root of 9, all to the power of 3. That's the first stage. You've got to know that. Then we can work out, using our tables, what is the square root of 9? Well, the square root of 9, 3 times 3 is going to be 9. So the square root of 9 is 3, all to the power of 3. And then, again, what is 3 to the 3? You might not know that straight off the top of your head. Okay, 3 to the 3 is going to be 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Times by 3 is 27. Again, you can look in your notes and that. You should have that there. 3 to the power of 3 is 27. And there's example 8. Hopefully you got that right. Hopefully you're getting used to these now. So, 125 and 27. Brilliant. Got a couple more here just to keep us going. I think it's better to do more with this one. If you want to pause and have a go at these two yourself, you can do. Okay, I'll probably suggest that. In fact, I'll make it big and then I'll go through both of them together. So pause whenever you want. So pause now and have a go at both of those. These are tricky. Okay, let's go through them together then. This example is this one now. I think it might be example 9, I think. Example 9. So 8 to the power of 2 over 3. Now remember, the bottom of the fraction is the root, the top is the power. So this is going to be the cube root of 8, all to the power of 2. Now it's different now, it's not the square root, it's the cube root. So you need to look down your cube roots. What is the cube root of 8? Well, the cube root of 8 is equal to 2. Still to the power of 2, so you've done inside the bracket. And then what is 2 to the power of 2? 2 squared, 2 times 2 is 4. So there's your first one. If you haven't done that second one, maybe pause and do that one. Okay, you might have done it already though. Okay, I'm going to do it now anyway. So example 10. Hopefully I feel as you might be feeling more confident now. So 36 to the power of 3 over 2. So the first thing you need to do is the bottom is the root, the top is the power. So it's the square root of 36 second root of 36, all to the power of 3. Now look down your list. What is the square root of 36? Square root of 36 is 6. And remember I said this might come up, didn't I? 6 to the power of 3. What is 6 to the power of 3? Have a look in your notes. 6 to the power of 3 is 216. And you will be expected to know that. 6 times 6 is 36. 36 times 6 is 216. Brilliant. Let's again check those answers. Hopefully you did well on those. 4, 216. Brilliant. Okay. Now this is the kind of the hardest type of question that will come up on here. Okay, it's just combining everything you've done so far. So we've got the negative indices, we've got fractional indices, really tough, okay? So this one here is example 12, isn't it? I'll do the first one and I'll let you do the second one. So here we've got 27 to the power of negative 2 over 3. So we've got a negative indice and we've got a fractional indice. So always deal with the negative first. So what does that negative mean? Well, the negative means the reciprocal, doesn't it? It means the 1 over. So the negative means reciprocal. So negative means 1 over 27 to the power of 2 over 3. That was from the previous video. Okay, brilliant. Then what we've got to do is we've got to do the bottom part. So this is equal to 1 over 27. Now remember, the bottom of the fraction is the root, so it's the third root of 27, all to the power of 2, like that. Okay. So use your notes. What is the third root of 27? Well, the third root of 27, what number do I need to times by itself 3 times to get 27? 3 times 3 is 9, times by 3 is 27. That's in your notes anyway. So this one here is going to be equal to 1 over 3 squared. Now we're nearly finished now. And this is 1 over 3 squared is 9. And that's your answer. Remember, you've got to do all this non-calculator, okay? So the negative means the reciprocal. Then keeping 1 over, we do the fraction, which is the bottom is the root, the top is the power. And then we work it out. Brilliant. So we've got one here from the OCR from 2017. It was a fix the question, so I think somebody had done it, but they hadn't finished it. So this one here is example, is it 13 I'm on? Can't remember. I think I've probably got all my numbers wrong. If I have, make sure they're right. Sorry about that, everyone. So what I'm going to say, I think this might be example, I can't remember. Anyway, so pause now and have a little go at that one on the right hand side. Pause now and have a go at that one on the right. Okay, let's have a go at it together then. So 64 to the minus 2 over 3. Remember, deal with that negative first. The negative means the reciprocal. So this means 1 over 64 to the power of 2 over 3. The negative means the reciprocal. Then we've got to deal with this. Remember, the bottom is the root, the top of the fraction is the power. Not the reciprocal part, just this. So it's 1 over the third root of 64, all to the power of 2. Okay? Checking your notes. What is the third root of 64? Well, the third root of 64, in your notes, it's going to be 4 times 4, which is 16, times by 4, which is 64. So it's going to be 1 over 4 squared. Again, this is you can probably see now why it's so important to have all those cubes, squares, to the power of 4 in there. So this is equal to 1 over 4 squared, which is 1 over 16. Brilliant. And how many marks? That 2 marks on the higher paper, that. Seems a lot for 2 marks, but if it comes up, look, it's question 15 though. Okay, so it's quite a tricky one. So it just says give the correct value. It might ask to say what the 2 errors are, but we've done it here, we've shown them here, and this question here actually only says give the correct value, and we've got the correct value, which is 1 over 16. So let's check those answers. 1 over 9, 1 over 16, brilliant. Super. So, got some questions here. So, I'll make these big for you. So pause now and have a little go at those questions. Pause now and have a little go at those questions. Okay, so I'll pop the answers on as well. So there's your answers. Mark those in green. Brilliant. So thank you for watching this video on fractional indices. It is a tricky one, that one, especially knowing all the cubes and the squares. So do make sure you're having a go at these questions. Remember, the only way to learn maths is to do it, and have a lovely day.